Hello, my name is Linda Stephanie Platachoa, and today I want to show you the most important key factors in the history of translation in Latin America. I chose one specific date, which was from the 15th until the 18th century, which there were a lot of changes in Latin America. There were a lot of interpreters that came out by that time, and the main objective in this presentation that I am showing you, it's to show you how translation was a key factor in that event and how it affected its development, including the role of translation, the impact on intercultural communication, the dissemination of ideas, and of course how this historical event influenced the evolution of translation in the region. So, to start with, I want to show you the most principal ideas that I took out from my research and investigations, and the most considerable factors that we can take out. First of all, the interpreters by that time were used to facilitate communication between Europeans and Native Americans because not everyone speaks the same language, so it was necessary to recruit some interpreters to translate not only from the source language until the target language, which was the main objective. Well, I can say the majority of them, of almost all of them, were indigenous people who were treated as slaves, and they work for the people like interpreters. There were many purposes for doing those kind of interpretations. We can consider that um, they were used to interpret communication for business, for understanding other cultures, people, and also to translate it into texts, books, articles, newspapers, philosophical texts, and so on. Also, I want to add the new subjects of the monarchy. Spanish, they have to be encouraged to speak Spanish because that is the language that was a lot of people started to learn it because of communication, because of translation, because of religious. Some of them wanted to talk about God's words, and it was important through the Bible to speak in another language to make people understand really, really conscious about what they were talking. Also, the different American kingdoms were conquered. The diversity of language began to disperse among the religious who saw her as an obstacle to their words. Since Colon conquered and he discovered America in 1492, he encountered that the words around 1,000 different languages separated in 133 groups that were commonly spoken in indigenous people. So he felt really fascinated by that discovered, and he started to research deeper in this topic. Um, there were, as I said before, there were a lot of languages like Nahuatl, which was commonly spoken in Mexico, Quechua, and Chicha. The Chicha were spoken by indigenous people in Colombia. Also, I want to consider the religious parts. The religious dedicated for studying the languages of the place, even reading grammars and dictionaries, translating numerous text doctrinaires. There were a lot of religious doctrines that were translated into another languages because, as I said before, the churches wanted to combine people to believe in gods. And one way to combine people is through languages, it's through spoken communication. So it was important to make people understand and feel that they really need to learn a new language. Also, there is a really important character by that time who was Sebastian of Covarrubias. He published the first dictionary of the language in 1611, which defines quite precision to the role of the interpreter by that time. That is considered the first dictionary that came out in the history. Also, well, I want to consider the importance of a really great interpreter. Her name was Melina Litt, who was born in 1502. She served as an interpreter. She worked for a man whose name was Aguilar, and he didn't understand the language of these indigenous peoples. Malinali mastered Nahuatl, and she translated from Nahuatl to Mayan, and Aguilar translated from Mayan to Spanish. So they worked together, but this was not only um, a feeling of translating together, but also Malinali became her wife and her couple for the rest of her life. And she was really dedicated to her words, and she could influence a lot of people. The importance of acquiring, of getting the new knowledge for those languages. Also, there were, as I said before, there were a lot of texts, literature, politics, religious, scientific words that were translated from French and English. There was like nowadays that we see in our globalized world, those are the languages that are used the most for translating text and for interpretations too. Well, we must consider that in Cuba, at the end of the 18th century, the Havana newspaper was created texts and words from the literary and philosophical currents of the century appeared. Texts from Rousseau, texts from Platon. Those texts influenced a lot the and people started to learn a lot about philosophy because of the translations that were made. Since the source language was very unknown for that, it is important the consideration of acquiring a new language. Also, for the roles of translations, the first laws that considered translation as official job. This law was written in 1529 and describes interpreters as assistants to governors and justice. They cannot ask for receive jewelry, clothing, or jewelry from the Indians. They only work and they just receive a compensation and that's it. But they couldn't accept any material because that was a violation of the laws by that time. Also, after that, in 1537, the Indians were authorized to be accompanied by a Christian friend to verify the veracity and accuracy of what the interpreter said. With the loss of 1563, the profession acquired its professional hierarchy. They started to receive a salary based on the number of questions they interpreted. They are determined by days and hours of work. The number of interpreters for each hearing is established. Their duties containing the oath to take are specified. So, as we could notice, the evolution of translation and interpreters, and nowadays we have universities, we have faculties that teaches translation as a profession. There are debates, there are books, there are texts that teaches people how to translate from a source language into a target language. Because of this evolution, it is important to learn history because history teaches us how the translation has improved over the years. We can notice that it has made a lot of improvements, and today, thanks to those improvements, to those yes, to those improvements, we can say it. We have a rich history of translation. Despite we have some things too that we can improve, we can learn from the history, from our from the people who lived before us, and who could and how they could overcome challenges and difficulties they challenge by that time. So, thank you very much. Here is the bibliographical reference from Bastin and por una historia de la traducción in Hispanoamérica. Thank you very much.